Hello, my name is Rinon, and today's video is the second of 4 parts in my deeper look into the Endwalker iterations of the 4 healers, including the brand new healer, Sage. Everything I'm going to be talking about today is completely subject to change and is based on the footage and tooltips that were released with the Endwalker media tour a few weeks ago. We are going to be talking about the new abilities and how they will affect Astrologian's playstyle, how the changes to cards will alter your mentality whilst playing, and how it compares against the other pure regen focused healer, White Mage. Let's get into it. Diurnal and Nocturnal Sect have been removed and Noct effects removed from aspected heals on the whole. This has cemented Ast as a purely regen healer and is likely the change that will drastically affect most players. I for one think it's actually a positive thing because Square Enix can then focus on giving it a clear and cemented identity. Benefic 2, Helios and Aspected Helios also get potency buffs through a level 85 trait. You can stack the regen effects with Regen and Medica 2 as well. These are small changes that healers are receiving across the board to buff their GCD healing potential. Gravity and Malefic also get upgrades, and Combust's dot potency actually dropped a little bit. I don't have too much to say about these changes as they don't really affect the overall job significantly, but the next changes are the ones that are interesting. Exaltation reduces damage taken by self or a target party member by 10%. Additionally, at the end of its 8-second duration, it also provides a heal to the target of 500 potency. It's on a 60-second cooldown and is an off global. So this one is actually really strong because it has twofold value. It offers your target, which in most cases is going to be the tank, a nice bump in terms of mitigation for an incoming hit. And then a couple of seconds later, it heals them up by the same potency as a Benefic cast. This is just another addition to Astro's absolutely insane single target free healing arsenal, alongside the fact that Celestial Intersection now has 2 charges. Macrocosmos deals unexpected damage to all nearby enemies with a potency of 250 for the first enemy and 50% less for all remaining enemies. On top of this, you and all nearby party members receive the Macrocosmos buff for 15 seconds. Whilst under the impact of the Macrocosmos buff, all 50% of all damage taken is going to be compiled. You can either detonate the skill manually, or you can wait the 15-second duration, and at the end of the skill, it will heal the party by the amount of damage compiled. It's a half-cast ability, similar to Malefic, and it's on a 2-minute cooldown with a 600 MP cost. Now, this skill on the whole might sound a little confusing, but it's actually very simple. It's an AoE damaging ability that gives you a buff. Then, after 15 seconds or on your command, it AoE heals the raid for half of the damage you took during that window. This ability is going to be either incredible or lackluster depending on how you make use of it. There are going to be use cases where it acts as a party-wide benediction, and that's an amazing thing, that's busted. But there are also going to be times where you don't get much more than you might receive from, say, a horoscope heal. You're going to want to plan how you use this spell very carefully fight on fight, because its impact can be game-changing if you play it well. Think terminal relativity on E12S and just how much impact that skill can have in a scenario like that. Now let's talk cards. Divination no longer requires seals, it's just a flat raid cooldown now. This is a great change for alleviating all the annoying RNG for the raid, so it's definitely a positive change. The RNG from Ast on the whole is definitely not a thing of the past though. Sleeve draw has been removed. Draw also gives 5% of your MP now instead of 8%. And it also gives you Clarifying Draw, which allows you to use 1 redraw. Draw gained a second charge, so you can more easily play 2 cards back to back, but redraw also doesn't stack anymore, so you get 1 redraw per card and that's it. Suddenly the RNG monster starts to rear its ugly head just a little bit, and that's compounded by the next new addition. Astrodyne grants an effect using the Astro Signs read from your divining deck. It can only be executed after reading 3 Astro Signs. The effects granted are determined by the number of different types of Astro Signs, and it lasts for 15 seconds. 1 sign type gives you Harmony of Spirit, which restores your own MP with a potency of 60. 2 sign types gives you the 1 sign reward and also Harmony of Body, which reduces spellcast time, recast time, and auto attack delay by 15%. 3 different sign types grants the 1 and 2 rewards and also Harmony of Mind, which increases damage dealt and healing potency by 5%. This is your new use of sigils instead of divination, and what it essentially does is move that risk of damage loss from RNG away from the raid buff and solely onto yourself with this new self buff. Early breakdowns have it at around a 50% chance of receiving the 3 sigil buff, so roughly half the time you're going to be going without that 5% damage buff. One interesting thing to note is that the Astrodyne Harmony of Mind buff is one of those healing buffs that also affects off globals, so it's definitely very convenient to have access to as much as possible. Minor Arcana also changed a lot, going back to the Stormblood ideology, and it doesn't cost a card to actually use. Instead, it's a flat 60-second cooldown. If you get a Lord, it's a 250 potency AoE skill, and a Lady is a 400 potency AoE heal. Maybe you can see why I mentioned that the RNG from Ast is definitely not gone yet, and if anything is more prevalent than ever for its personal damage. I was surprised, honestly, to see that this Stormblood iteration of Lord and Lady saw a return, because back then it was heavily criticised for the lackluster capability of Lady and the RNG it added to Ast's damage rotation, but here we are. There is one little addition to Minor Arcana that I'd like to bring up here too, and that's that it actually split into 2 different buttons now. You have Minor Arcana to draw a card, and then you have Crown Play to play a card. I'm really not sure where this is a thing, honestly. So how does Astro change on the whole? The basic gameplay loop of Ast is near identical to the way it works currently in Shadowbringers. You refresh your dot every 30 seconds, you spam Malefic in between, using off-global heals as needed to maintain a healthy party. However, the changes to a couple of abilities and the addition of Astrodyne mark some significant additions and changes to the general Ast gameplay loop. Card play is actually very interesting now, and I'm going to break down how the changes affect the way you're going to be buffing both your allies and your own damage in more efficient ways than most would in the past. First of all, in raid encounters, Ast much prefers a 30-second pre-pull countdown, which is kind of annoying, but they need to draw and store a card, which then enables them to play 3 cards in the opener. The removal of sleeve draw means that this is of utmost importance to allow the Astro to use their first Astrodyne in their opener and ensure they're making the most of that potion and the plethora of raid buffs available. Then, following that, you're going to want to hold onto that card that becomes available at 30 seconds and leave it on the back burner, waiting for the 1 minute window. At 1 minute, you want to play that card on the highest damage target, and you wait again. 90 seconds in, you're once again going to draw a card and re-roll it as needed, but you hold onto it without playing it. Then finally, at the 2 minute window when it approaches and raid buffs from the other jobs are going up, you're going to back-to-back quickly play 3 cards on DPS players in succession, and you're also going to put up your own Astrodyne as soon as you've gained the 3rd seal. This is going to repeat once again exactly at the 4 minute mark, and then again on the 6 minute mark everything is going to reach a bit of a peak. If you've been Astrodyning as soon as you hit 3 sigils during the 2 and 4 minute burst windows, you should then have 3 sigils ready to go at around the 5 minute mark. You can hold on to those for a minute, and then at the 6 minute mark you Astrodyne into 3 cards into a second Astrodyne the moment the first falls off. This is so potent because it's all going on during your second potion window and during a raid burst window, and this is going to net you a significant amount of extra damage. Following this entire cycle of using 1 card every minute and then 3 cards every second minute with a large 6 minute burst is going to generally repeat. The main thing that's going to hurt here is that you only get to reroll each card once to get the desired seal. But on the whole, it is definitely not worth sacrificing a good card on the right player for a worse card in order to get the right seal. The raid damage gain of correct card is noticeably higher than correct seal, so it's somewhat of a secondary gacha game you're going to be playing alongside the card drawing. Honestly, changing redraw back to 3 stacks would help alleviate this RNG massively in my opinion, and it's a very easy fix. One other priority that is going to drastically change here is Earthly Star. Remember that incredible ability that rewarded planning with a great free heal and a little bit of free damage, right? Before it was 150 potency, but look at him now, a 320 potency Sigma male. Now suddenly your Earthly Star is a significant enough damage gain that you really don't want to hold it, and instead you absolutely want to ensure that it goes down on cooldown to make sure that you do not miss a use. So now the skill ceiling for Earthly Star is absolutely going to go up on the whole, because you are going to be aiming to maximize its healing potential alongside its damage potential, with the cost of failing to capitalize on that 320 potency hit hurting you a lot more than using Star exclusively for healing in the past has done. Now let's talk healing. Astro actually scares me a little bit in the healing department, in all honesty. Not in a bad way, but because it has so much on-demand free healing and so much capability and customization in the way that you can pair these skills to deal with all types of incoming damage. It's gonna be difficult to compete with. Neutral Sect still exists, and it still makes your GCD healing provide both shields and regen. And unless there is a change to the current status quo, these are still stackable with Scholar and Sage shields, making it an incredible co-healer for prog. Assuming this is the case, for a massive incoming hit, you can apply Neutral Sect shields and flash Collective Unconscious for the 10% mitigation, and this is before you account for the mitigation provided by your barrier co-healer, whose job it is to mitigate these hits. It's a fearsome combination. In terms of free heals per minute as well, you're looking at Essential Dignity, which has 2 charges and comes up every 40 seconds. You have 2 charges of Celestial Intersection and an Exaltation to apply to the tank to help them out with autos. And for AoE healing, in terms of free abilities, you have Earthly Star, Celestial Opposition, and Collective Unconscious, the latter 2 of which also apply regens. Add to this Sinistry and Horoscope to further buff your heals, and that is before we account for the free lady heals from Minor Arcana, or from longer cooldowns like the new spell Macrocosmos, which means that Astrologian is likely still going to be the king of healing the raid at 0 cost. Coupled with this is the fact that our MP economy is actually better than our Shadowbringer's mana depending on how we use our abilities. Cards now only grant 500 MP rather than 800 MP, and coupling that with Lucid Dreaming may make Ast sound like it's going to run dry very quickly, but you get a 2 Sigil Astrodyne, which is relatively consistent to obtain, and then you gain an extra 3000 MP per use. You're going to be using this every 2 minutes in an optimal setting, but in progression settings where you're GCD healing a lot, you can very easily shift your Astrodyne usage in order to use it every 90 seconds if needed, or you can even move your initial Astrodyne back to the end of your opener to then make the most of the extra mana ticks. In blind prog especially, there are going to be some real decisions to be made in terms of recovery with Astrodyne's mana economy for some players. Oh, and the Living Dead test? 2ED too easy. So on the whole, Astro is looking absolutely incredible in Endwalker from a performance aspect. Whilst it definitely has the lowest personal DPS of the 4 healers and the highest APM, it makes up for any shortcomings with a robust catalogue of powerful heals that interact well with one another, superior mitigation for a pure healer that bring the best out of your fellow players. The RNG has been removed from divination and instead compiled onto your own personal damage, and whilst that is definitely annoying in some ways and there are going to be some head-scratching additions made to card play like crown play, Astro is going to feel on the whole very satisfying to play optimally, and each pull is going to be different to one another thanks to Astrodyne's addition in conjunction with cards. If you're already an Ast main, you're going to be happy. If you're a White Mage main, it might be a good opportunity to pick up the Divining deck. I have a feeling that Ast has a little more to bring to the table on the whole in most scenarios. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope you all have an absolutely fantastic day.